to a survey we conducted coming from the last virtual special workshop we organized together with the University of Coimbra. And following this workshop, so I did a quick survey, a questionnaire and an online a word questionnaire, plus a follow-up discussion with 10 European member states, energy agencies, or implementing authorities involved in EED, Energy Efficiency Directive. The starting point was, so as we heard in some of the speakers before, motors are running far beyond their expected lifetime. So they can run 30, 40 years. So meaning we're still an unknown, but probably significant number of old motors, IE0, maybe IE1 or whatever in service. If they are failing and need to be replaced, of course, then eco-design minimum efficiency standards come into place, and they must meet the regulation. But why wait another 5, 6, 7 years? Why not replace the old system, the old motor now? And then the idea is to harvest this anticipated savings earlier as a contribution to the EU efficiency and emission targets. We did a quick back of the envelope calculation. Fernando can put the link how we did this. It's a very rough estimate. So we say motors account for 75% of electricity consumption in industry and maybe 40% of electricity consumption in tertiary. If we replace like 40, 50% of old motors with best available technology now, we make at least conservatively calculated an efficiency jump from 3, 4, 5% better efficiency. And these relates then to roughly 18 terawatt hours per year for EU 27. If we consider the whole system, like Hannibal pointed out, and Konrad as well, it's not only about the motor, it's motor plus fan, motor plus pump, etc. Then the factor is probably 2 to 3 times higher. So we're talking about 45 terawatt hours per year. And these energy savings anticipated, harvested before eco-design makes them mandatory. This should be reported and eligible under the energy efficiency obligation scheme, EED, which is the current Article 7, but is now under discussion how they will structure the new one. As I said, so we had a first dedicated workshop, accelerated motor replacement in April, organized together with University of Coimbra, people from the European Commission, representatives responsible for eco-design as well as for EED, from DGN, etc., were attending the workshop, representatives from industry and from national authorities as well, and they expressed their interest in further exploring this because there are still some barriers for implementation, and they need to get a better grip on different policy options. So I said what I did. I sent out a questionnaire to 10 member states, and I did a follow-up call with the national authorities, energy agencies in Austria, Belgium, Germany, Spain, France, Greece, Italy, Luxembourg, Poland, and Portugal. And these represent 75% of our motor electricity consumption in tertiary in industrial sector. So I think it's, if these countries see a need and an impact, so it would worthwhile to consider this moving forward. Just a quick check. So the interviewed organizations are definitely the implementing authorities for Article 7 EED, or at least they are responsible as third parties also in the implementation, monitoring, verification, and providing technical support. Here's a quick overview. So basically there are 3 blocks. First of all, we asked them a couple of questions, any experience in the past with motor renovation? And we see basically only Luxembourg has a simplified methodology in their current catalog. So very nice, simple, standardized measure with some use cases, with some indicative values according size of the motor, runtime, tertiary versus industry. So very easy, applicable, and eligible. If you replace a motor, an old motor, with a new motor, you can calculate the savings, deemed savings, and these savings are eligible in their energy obligation schemes. France has kind of, but it's a bit tricky. In the full report, we have the references to the national catalogs, to the documents where you can see the details. Basically, the benchmark is IE4. So regardless whether the old motor is IE0, IE1, IE2, they only consider IE4 as the benchmark. So it's not very practical and not realistic. Austria had some experience, but it's 10 years ago. And in some countries, yeah, motor replacement is eligible, but this is part of a larger industrial scheme where you say, okay, we basically improve a process, and then you need an engineering audit or an engineering report, and you analyze the total process. But how much is the motor here is not a dedicated focus. The second block, these 18 terawatt hours per year on EU 27 level, we made the same calculation for every country individually, and we said, okay, in Austria we have so and so many terawatt hours as a theoretic potential. How does it compare to your current measures in your catalog, buildings, lighting, whatever? And in most of the countries say, well, there's an interesting ballpark figure. It's more or less on the same level. Poland said even higher than what they currently have in most of their measures. And the last block, of course, we asked them, okay, what do you need? Which kind of support? Which kind of information is needed? Is there a need? And definitely there is a need, as you see. Again, the first question was, how important are these theoretical savings? And the savings are, the ballpark figure is well recognized. Some of the comments were here, it fits in the general picture, which Konrad presented us very well. So it's part of the game changer. We need to use all different tools in the toolbox to come down greenhouse gas emissions, to become more energy efficient, to use our resources. And also a very important statement was that, okay, if we replace a running motor, let's say 5 or 6 years earlier, then it has to be replaced, then these savings can be used and are eligible cumulatively over the entire reporting period. So it's not only a year one only, it's a year one plus year two plus year three, etc. Savings reporting, which is important for member states. To develop such a anticipated motor renovation, motor replacement program, what kind of support measures do national authorities need? And number one was, okay, we need a better database. We need an assessment through a European-wide study. So this is exactly what Anibal was describing just before here. So we need the data. So how old are the motors? What are the use cases? What is runtime? Not every motor is running 8,000 hours per year, not at full load. So what is the load profile? So this will give us a real data set where we can say, okay, what are really the true savings if you replace these kind of motors and that kind of cluster, and what are the indicative values, so we can build up typical use cases, which makes, and this comes to the second point here, a methodology for savings calculations. Member states often need a deemed savings, so they need to estimate and make it simple and standardized. So if we have different option sets, then they can play with use cases, motor sizes, load profiles, and really assess, okay, these are really the savings we can achieve. And also the next important point is what we heard both from Konrad and from Hannibal, it's not about the motor only, it's about a system approach. So we need also to associate the savings to the entire systems, including pumps, ventilation, etc. Of course, for EED, it's always important to avoid double counting, to show this additionality. So we need to really prove that the savings come before eco-design becomes mandatory, and then these can be harvested and eligible and reportable under EED. And also important, the current article EED 8, which is about energy audits. This could be a good opportunity to link energy audits and energy management systems to how to identify the ideal candidates for motor renovation. In the appendix of my slides here, I put some of the comments and further explanations from the interviewed organizations and agencies, so which illustrate a little bit what they really need, what they want. So the details, and Fernando will circulate the presentation later, so you can go into some more subtle differences here. There's definitely need among member state agencies and authorities to exchange information and to have a peer-to-peer platform for experience sharing. So what information is most relevant and needed? And number one was, okay, member states, if they put it in their catalog under Energy Efficiency Directive, energy obligation schemes, they must be sure that it will be accepted on EU level. So a kind of harmonization, a simple methodology, which is simple, safe, gives the parameters for the national policies. Then, of course, member states do not want to reinvent the wheel, so they can learn from each other. Which policy measures worked well in country A and can be adapted for country B, which has failed and worked not so well. So this experience exchange is very important to design effective new programs. If we can learn from old programs, also from the failure of old programs, we can probably better design new programs in each member state. Economic support mechanism is also very important to understand what works and what does not work. Is it bonus? Is it malus? Is it incentives, soft loans? So they're all different options. But there must be some, of course, at the end, what counts is money. So there must be some kind of economic, commercial motivation, incentive for industry to make a move if they're not legally forced to replace the motor. Possible business models. So we saw the very nice example in Konrad's presentation of payback of 1 year. I think this is an ideal example how you can convince SMEs. SMEs particularly don't have time, not the knowledge, not the know-how, not the resources to deal with energy efficiency issues. So it's often the CEO or the maintenance manager or the production manager who has also to deal with, okay, how can we save some energy here and there? And if you present them a nice, simple business model, at least that's the first gate. Then they will get the okay from the CEO or from the CFO and say, okay, now we go into the technical details. But is there a payback? Yes, there's a payback. It's easy. Okay, fine. And then, of course, so how can we link the efficiency requirements to the intensity of incentives? This modulation, this is also something countries want to learn from each other. So my brief, a few conclusions here. Yeah, the theoretical energy saving potential through anticipated motor renovation before eco-design makes it mandatory is recognized, but none of the member states, at least none I'm aware of, has really a proactive campaign. So in no member states there is a website or a workshop or some kind of industry initiative that they really actively ask industry and tertiary sector to replace older motors, even if they run and even if the system works well, with more efficient ones. The calculation seems at first glance rather simple. Okay, so you have a sort of an input, an output, you have losses in between, you can calculate the losses before and the losses after. But still you need some kind of harmonized methodology to be accepted. So make sure that it's really accountable under Energy Efficiency Directive. And very important, we need data. We need a new European study to assess the true status of our motor stock, to develop use cases, indicative values, then to feed into the simplified calculation methodology. Data which is 20-year-old and is only, I would say, extrapolated based on some examples is not valid. So we need to, and you find this in the comments here in the appendix, a lot of hints that the study should cover not only 1 or 2 countries. It must be representative for Scandinavia as well as for Southern Europe, for big countries, for small countries. It must include the mix of industry and tertiary, big companies, small SMEs, so that every member state can then really identify, okay, here is the portfolio and the parameters I can find, or I can build my own model here for my country based on this study, which gives me the entire panorama. Among member state authorities, there is definitely need for peer-to-peer dialogue, and also to have on pan-European level some support. So then top-down to optimize what will happen on national, and also very important, there are a lot of regional programs specifically for SMEs, and this must be coordinated and streamlined. And we need to develop payback business model cases to specifically convince industry how, and also inform them how to get access to their local incentives program. Sometimes the industry, specifically SME, don't know where they can find soft loans or which kind of subsidies they can use for a specific program. And this would also make the bridge probably to energy audits and external consultants, which can help, or programs from energy agencies dedicated to this, to inform and raise awareness. So potential is use, not only motors, also upgrade as a specific subcase here with variable speed drives, and much higher on system level. So how can we tackle this potential savings and take this into consideration, and really to prove, okay, this is additional, this comes on top what would happen in business as usual. Now we anticipate and we can harvest earlier and make this prominent. But therefore, information exchange, dialogue between all relevant stakeholders, EU Commission, national agencies, authorities, and industry and their associations is key. So many thanks.